The good member from the 7th District, Representative Abell.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Rising in support of the bill. In doing so, I'd like to acknowledge the work of a few members of this body, including specifically the gentleladies from across the aisle from the 32nd District and the 23rd District, as well as the ranking member on this side of the aisle from the 8th District for their hard work and genuine dialogue and engagement on this bill. I'd like to talk a little bit about what this bill addresses, the changes that it makes, and then talk briefly about a veteran who is on my mind this evening. So what House Bill 1541 does is it addresses the composition of the Veterans Affairs Advisory Committee, which is a 17-member committee which is composed primarily of representatives from the various veterans service organizations to advise our governor and our Department of Veterans Affairs on all issues impacting veterans. That includes, among other things, housing, health care, access to benefits, suicide prevention, among others. What this bill does is it makes some revisions to the Veterans Affairs Advisory Committee membership to provide for alternate options for representation by a member of an enrolled Native American tribe, as well as a member of the Guard. And it also makes some revisions regarding representation from the soldiers' homes at Ording and Retzel. I believe that these are good changes to the Veterans Affairs Advisory Committee and will help it work better, more smoothly going into the future. With that being said, I'd like to talk briefly about a veteran who I'm thinking about. So I mentioned a number of times on the floor that I live in Inchelium, and I was born and raised in that area there in Ferry County. Growing up, I was privileged to know a gentleman by the name of Jim Judd, who attended our local church. Jim was born in 1920 in Chehalis, Washington, and moved with his family to Inchelium at the age of 12, where they farmed and raised cattle. Jim went off and served in World War II in the Pacific Theater, and also served in Korea. He was a dear friend of my grandfather, and by the time I got to know him, he was an older gentleman, an elder in our church with a shock of silver white hair. And I had a chance to know him as both a high school student and as a young man. And when I went off into the Navy and was being sent to Iraq in 2007, I had a chance to meet with him at our little local church. It was the last chance I was going to get to see him before I got deployed. And so I stuck out my hand to shake his hand, and he gave me a salute. It was extremely meaningful, Madam Speaker. I got a chance to come back from Iraq. I saw him a number of times, and since then, Jim Judd has long since gone home. But his example has always stuck with me as an example of being a warrior, as an example of being a gentleman, and somebody who takes the issues facing the Veterans Affairs Advisory Committee very much to heart. I believe that if Jim Judd were here, he'd be very strongly in support of this bill. It's called House Bill 1541, but in my mind, Madam Speaker, it's the Jim Judd Memorial Act of 2025, and I ask your support.